From the studios of Ave Maria Radio in Ann Arbor, this is Veterans Radio. And now, here's your host, Gary Lilly.
Good morning, America. Welcome to Veterans Radio. Good morning to our troops serving around the world and preserving our freedom. Thank you very much. Us old guys are looking at you with great admiration. You're doing a superb job. Good morning to my veteran brothers and sisters. Welcome home. And to you folks down there in Australia, New Zealand, and Tasmania, thanks for listening in, even though you might be doing it on the archives tomorrow. And welcome to Veterans Radio. I'm Gary Lilly, your host, CB, July 66. And over in the air boss today in the control room is the old 101st Screaming Eagle, Bob Gould.
All the way.
We've got a nice show lined up for you today. We're going to be talking to an old Marine who's now got a very interesting job. But in the meantime, we have Dave Miller, the COO of Conway Freight, on the line. They're stationed here in Ann Arbor. Mr. Miller, welcome to Veterans Radio.
Thanks very much, Gary. We very much appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today.
Well, I appreciate it. And more so, I appreciate what your company has done. You've just signed a partnership with the U.S. Army Reserves. Tell us about it, if you would, please.
Well, thanks very much. We've basically formalized a long-standing relationship that we've had with the Army Reserve, essentially aligning that we are going to continue our efforts to recruit veterans, to continue to encourage the recruitment of employees from the National Guard and the Reserve to help give us a differentiation and a market advantage in our space.
This seems like kind of an inconvenience if these guys are going to be shipped back overseas like they might be. Why do you want reserves and National Guard working for you?
Well, very candidly, supporting and recruiting veterans and National Guard and Reserve just makes good business sense. Veterans and reservists are well-trained, disciplined, they understand hard work. Lord knows they have exhibited their ability to work under the most arduous of conditions. They exhibit esprit de corps, they're loyal, they're used to working as part of a team. I mean, there's just no downside.
A friend of mine ran the quality control department for 6 Ford Motor Company plants from up here in Michigan to down in Mexico. He didn't make it official, but he only hired former military guys, and he said the exact same things that you just said. But they're people that are goal-oriented, and they don't complain about the little stuff.
They provide us a competitive advantage that's due to their training, the work ethic, the leadership training, the understanding of what it takes to complete a successful mission. It just aligns with our values and helps our overall workforce.
How many employees does Conway Freight have?
Currently, Conway Freight's just under 22,000 employees throughout North America.
And actually, aren't you international also, a different division?
We are. If you think in terms of our Conway Inc., which would be all businesses under our flag, we have about 28,000 employees worldwide.
And how many reserves do you think you'll have working for you at the peak?
You know, that's a tough figure to put together because we don't ask whether somebody is a reservist or a guard or a veteran. Because one of the things we found out early on, many times people, because of prior experiences, were hesitant to share that because they thought they might be discriminated against and not afforded opportunities. We have identified just over 100 employees that we know for sure, and in most cases, Gary, it's because they've been deployed or they've been called up for summer duty. But now all our workforce, and this has been true for probably the last 3 or 4 years, they recognize how strongly Conway feels about our responsibility, our duty to support our civilian warriors.
You touched on something that was the subject of great discussion last Thursday night at my Vietnam Veterans of America chapter. My chapter has raised a lot of money since the war began, and we've sent 1,500 packages equaling just over 10 tons of goodies to the troops. And we got into the discussion that, we're missing something. We need to send things that pick up the guys' morale from the standpoint of what happens when they come back. One of a former nurse works with this the new organization, Veterans of Modern Warfare, said that she has learned that the subject of discussion over in Iraq, Afghanistan, and when they get back here in the States is they're worried that nobody will hire them because they've been to a war. You're showing it the other way.
Absolutely, and I think it's a travesty that these fine young men and women have to even have that as a worry, because at the end of the day, and we make it very clear to our civilian warriors, we want their head in a mission over there because we want them to bring it home safe. And from that standpoint, we make sure they understand that as they have our back in the war zone, we have their back here at the United States.
You know, when I talked about this at our Vietnam Veterans of America chapter meeting, I talked about the Conway Freight's partnership with the reserves and what it means to the troops. And we got to talking about it. It's not just the people you hire. It's not just the ones that are going to come to work for you and get the jobs. It's not just the jobs. It's showing those troops that this country believes in them.
That's an absolute critical component, and every American citizen has that duty. And we consider it an honor. It's just something that we can't do enough for. As an example, we send out care packages on a quarterly basis, and we send out far more than our direct employees can utilize, and they use it within their units. We get wonderful pictures back showing an entire unit wearing Conway T-shirts, or we have units holding up the candy that they got. We sponsored a 5K race that was done on July 4th that was being celebrated at one of the forts outside of Baghdad last week, and I had the opportunity to get pictures of the troops running. They were holding Conway water bottles, and they ended up giving some of those water bottles to the local population, mostly children. And it was very gratifying to see how what we send over to make the lives a little bit easier for our civilian warriors are also being utilized to build relationships with the local population.
One of the things that people don't realize about over in Vietnam is how much work we did with the local population and how much the kids liked our guys. They were always coming around to hit us up for candy, C-rats, and such. And we know that they're doing it over there in Iraq right now. So when you send stuff for the kids, it's really building up relations.
You bet. You might as well try to make a friend early in life.
Exactly. My first boss told me, take a child by the hand and you take a mother by the heart.
There you go.
Now, those T-shirts that you were talking about, those are popular items for the troops. They love to get the T-shirts that remind them of back home, and so the Conway Freight T-shirts, I'll bet you they're enjoying putting them on.
Well, they get that. We interview. In fact, I personally interview 100% of the guys and gals before they go and when they get back. And on the return side, I interview them just to find out, are there other items that they've discovered that they are not readily available that we might be able to provide through any efforts that we can make here stateside, either hitting up customers that may manufacture those particular items, or whether or not it's used books, magazines. Again, we just want to try to make sure that these guys and gals know that we're supporting them, we're thinking about them, and we certainly appreciate the sacrifice they're making so that today, as an example, you and I are in a position to sit here and have this conversation and not worry about somebody dropping a bomb on us.
That's exactly right. We owe a lot to the military, for preserving our freedoms. They're the ones that preserve our freedoms. Now, what you were talking about, a suggestion here, our chapter is sending over soccer balls, and we're getting requests from the troops over there. They said the little kids are saying, Mister, you got footy ball? And that's their football. So we're out looking and scouring for donations of footballs, of soccer balls right now. Huge hit over there. What happened?
If I find an opportunity, Gary, to support that, we'll certainly get back in touch with you.
Wonderful. What happens when the troops go overseas? What happens to their job? Well,
again, as I mentioned, I speak with 100% of our guys and gals, and I get on the phone with them. I just reinforce with them that they don't have any worries, that their job's here, that their seniority will continue to accrue, their vacations time will continue to accrue. We also let them know that our local operations are going to reach out to their remaining family members if there's any issues at home whatsoever. We want them to know that our extended Conway family will reach out to their family, and whether it's they got a leaky roof, they got a lawnmower that won't start, we want our civilian soldiers to have their head in their mission over in Iraq or Afghanistan, and to recognize that if there's any issues on the home front for their family, we'll be there to help.
That is so critical, as you said, so they can keep their mind on their job, because it's not just morale, it's safety.
Absolutely. In fact, it's kind of funny you're giving me an opportunity. One of my last send-off comments I make to them is I tell them that if they bring any metal home, I want it tagged to their blouse and not anywhere else.
How many people that work for a 28,000 employee company have the COO actually giving them a phone call? That's pretty impressive.
Well, I hope more do, because it certainly demonstrates clearly the commitment of the employer and how important it is to make sure that these folks understand that commitment runs from top to bottom.
And with those words, we'll let you get going to your busy schedule. And thank you very, very much, David Miller, COO of Conway Freight. Thank you, Gary. We appreciate the airtime. Absolutely. Have a great day. You too. Bob, that was pretty impressive what that company is doing.
Oh, I know, and I like the fact that he recognizes how military people are trained, and they're well trained in discipline, and they're well trained in organization. They can multitask. That was a good interview. Good job. Well, I'd like the word to get out to these reserves, especially the ones that we had a guy come back that his company had gone out of business, and he was a heavy equipment mechanic. So I called some different big construction companies, and every one of them, I talked to the owners, every one of them said, have them come to me. And so what happened, though, is he got a job on his own before he had the chance to make the phone call. These are good employees. It was also good that Dave pointed out that some employers, are a little bit reluctant because they're just coming back from heavy combat, heavy duty, and would that make a difference? And Dave kind of cleared that up right away with 28,000 employees. Indeed, I would think that this guy is he would be sort of the benchmark. And you know what? It's the COO of the company, not their public relations person, that wanted to be on here to talk about it. Major cool. Right. Only on Veterans Radio. Okay, what do we have next? You got some troops that are coming back, Bob? Yes, I do. Welcome home. Each week on Veterans Radio, we welcome home servicemen and women who, after serving away from their country, are returning home. Dateline, Twin Cities, Minnesota. 400 members of the Mikado Base 2nd Battalion, 135th Infantry, Minnesota National Guard, returned home after 1 year in Kosovo. The unit conducted peacekeeping operations as part of Task Force Bayonet, completing more than 12,000 security patrols, setting up vehicle control points, discovering caches of weapons, and providing medical treatment to civilians. Dateline, Iowa. Soldiers of the 1st Battalion, 194th Field Artillery Battery A of the Iowa National Guard are returning home from their peacekeeping mission in Kosovo. And we're back on Veterans Radio. I've got to re-record that commercial, Bob. I was sicker than a dog that day. Pardon me? With that, you're going to do the big boy, right? You're going to talk a little. That's yeah, right. The official breakfast stop of Veterans Radio. When you're in Ann Arbor and you're on your way to the Ann Arbor VA, and they come from all over the world to the Ann Arbor VA. By the way, the Red Roof Inn, which is adjacent to the Big Boy restaurant, also has special rooms for service people that are going to the VA and have to spend a couple days. The Ann Arbor VA is connected, affiliated with the University of Michigan Medical Center. That's right. So, and the Big Boy right there at US 23 and Plymouth Road. When you are in Michigan, when you are in Ann Arbor, you're going to want to stop over there. First of all, it's beautiful on the outside with all the red, white, and blue flowers. You know, he planted 325 flats. The owner, one of the partners, yes. 325 flats. What is his name? He's a really neat guy. Joe, Joe and Jonathan. And, of course, they've got the famous Brawny Lad steak sandwiches and a wonderful breakfast bar solution along with those absolutely scrumptious big boy pies.
Got your mouth watering, doesn't it?
Did we
Bob?
do them justice?
We did. Stop off and see us. If you're in the area, stop off and see us. Say hello to the Veterans Radio crew. This morning, we've got a man on here who starred on 2 NCAA championship cross-country teams at Western Michigan University in 1964 and 1965. Following his graduation from Western Michigan, he spent 2 seasons as a graduate assistant at Eastern Michigan University. And then he had a little brief interruption there in his cross-country career and came on. And now, Ron Warhurst, you're in your 34th year, is it, at University of Michigan as head coach of the men's cross-country team?
We're starting the 35th in September.
Starting the 35th. You have a wonderful job working with young folks like that. And I just wanted to say, up here, for all you folks down south, we get something up here called snow. And one day I was down near the University of Michigan campus in my vehicle, and I got stuck in a snowdrift. There was a guy walking by with, he was on crutches and had his leg in a cast, and he asked me if he could give me a push. And I said, no, you got enough troubles. You keep going, and I'll get it out of here. Ron, you're doing your coaching, and it has to be an uplifting job.
It's a lot of fun. It's been quite an experience over the past 34 years going into the 35th year. We've had a lot of success. We've had ups and downs. We've been first. We've been 10th. We've been in the middle. But it's a tremendous reward for working with young adults.
Well, you've got 7 Big Ten championships and one NCAA championship and 12 seconds and thirds, and you've had You've had runners go out to the Olympics and to the Boston Marathon. I think the last American that won the Boston Marathon was one of your students. Is that correct?
That's correct, Greg Meyer. After 34 years, you better have a resume like that, or else you're not worth your salt.
Well, obviously, you're worth your salt. I hope the University of Michigan takes good care of you. But you had a little bit of an interval in between your days that you started in college and the days that you started coaching college, a job where that cross-country training may have come in kind of handy for you. Tell us what you did for a living for a couple of years.
Well, I enlisted in the Marine Corps when I was 24 years old after being through 4 years of college and a year at graduate school. Just was interested in seeing what it was like to be in the Marine Corps, and I thought they would prepare you the best for combat, and I assumed that for a 2-year enlistment that I would be going to Vietnam and be in combat, and that's how it got started.
Well, you brought in a lot of photographs that were taken in country, and just so I kind of get the warm-up feeling of them, I've got a lot of them spread out in front of me. And here I've got a photograph. Why don't you describe what this photograph, you're carrying weapons and you've got your pant leg rolled up. Tell us what you were doing there.
Well, we were on patrol, and I walked point, and I was kind of bored hanging out in the back of the ranks, so I asked one of the point fellows, I said, what do you do? Tell me how you do it. I said, I can't go through 13 months of sitting in the back, 300-400 yards from what was happening up front. So he said, you really want to learn how to do it? And I said, yeah. So I followed him for approximately 3 to 4 weeks, and then I started taking over. And I used to roll my pants up to in case I could feel piano wires or whatever they used, trip wires for grenades and for booby traps. And I have carrying a law. I carried 20 magazines, carried 6 hand grenades, carried M16, of course, and I carried a Claymore mine and 4 canteens and a lot to... I was not going to run out of ammunition. I was not going to run out of water.
If there's room for food, you had that.
I had it strapped in my socks.
Yeah, I saw that. The guys
on the backpacks. Yeah, that's how we used to carry our food. Yeah,
I saw that. I remember watching the Marines go out. Some of these photographs, you're not too well shaven. That's not military, is it?
We had some of the rules were kind of lax when we were out in the field for 3 and 4 weeks at a time.
Pretty difficult to carry a razor blade and look neat. You'd go out for 3 or 4 weeks. Now, when you were walking behind the point man, was that guy called slack? Did you guys in the Marines use that term, slack?
No, I was just the guy that was going second, and then about 3 or 4 behind me was the gunner, and then about 3 behind them was the squad leader, patrol leader with the radio man.
Right. And that was kind of the guys that the bad guys really wanted to get first. Is that not right? The M60 machine gunner and the radio man?
Right. They used to... the radio guys would tape their antennas down flat, so the enemy Viet Cong or North Vietnamese regulars would be at a distance. So we'd mix them up sometimes. So they wouldn't always have the 4th person or the 5th person be the radio man or the gunner and so forth. So they like to get the gunner because they can lay down a ground of fire, and they like to get the radio man so we couldn't call in artillery or air support.
You've got a photograph here that shows a 500-pounder going off. How close would they drop those, and what did it do to your ears?
Well, we knew they were coming. We'd call in the Marine flyers were in Da Nang. We were about 20 miles from Da Nang, so we could get them there pretty quick if we were in a hot zone. They drop them 150 yards from us, 150 meters, and if we were we'd be getting down into the foxhole, and you could hear the crack. It's like lightning. You hear the crack of lightning, and then you hear the loud thunder. And we were close enough that we'd end up getting dirt thrown on us from the position.
You were in a lot of firefights over there. I know from having talked to you in the past, and so for 9 months you walked point, and then after that you had another job that you volunteered for.
I worked for the group of officers called did counterintelligence work. They would find out when there'd be some political leaders in the villages just across the river from our Anhua combat base, and we'd go out at night, and because I was in the rear for 2 months, they kind of give you a break after being out in the field for 9 to 10 months. They kind of wean you off the action, but they liked to have combat veteran troops guys to go with them because they knew if there was going to be a firefight that we would know how to react to what was going on. And they literally, we went right into the villages. We'd get across the river in sampans, and then we'd wait till the morning, and then we'd rush the village and try and pick out which ones were who. They usually had some support people with them. They were trying to pacify the people. We were trying to pacify them. They were trying to pacify them to become communists. So we'd end up in some pretty nasty firefights, and they wanted to get the political leaders and then bring them back and interrogate them, and find out where their leaders were, what was going on, where the troop movements were. So it was a counterintelligence action.
I read a book that was a autobiography of one of the founders of the National Liberation Front, and the NLF, the Viet Cong were their military arm. And he said the programs that you guys were doing over there was breaking their back, grabbing their leadership out in the field like that. Dangerous work.
Well, war is not fun. Anytime you pick up a rifle or any kind of weapons around it, it's not fun. It is dangerous. And we were in a place called Arizona Territory. It was a free fire zone that supposedly anything that was not a Marine, we could, you'd be very careful of that. They were probably Viet Cong or Viet Cong sympathizers. And I guess in 1969, the time that I was there, we fought mainly North Vietnamese regulars, and they were very tenacious fighters. Obviously, by how long the war lasted and the success they had at the end of it.
They were. I've done a lot of reading. I decided in 1989 I was going to become a student of the war to find out just what it was I lived through. And in talking also with guys like you that were out in the field, you've had a lot of respect for the North Vietnamese Army. This was an army, not guerrillas, correct?
That's correct. I think in the Tet Offensive in '68, we pretty much the Viet Cong were the lead group right. in the Tet Offensive, and we broke them pretty good. And so I think Ho Chi Minh at that point decided that they were not going to defeat the North Vietnamese regulars. So after that, it was becoming more of a North Vietnamese regular NVA. The NVA soldiers were more. They had them stationed pretty much down the Ho Chi Minh Trail in Laos and Cambodia, and started infiltrating a lot more of them in late '68 and early '69 through '70.
Bui Tin was the guy that accepted the surrender of South Vietnam. He now lives in Paris, France. Like a lot of the old leadership, they decided that in the end, they decided that they were sort of on the wrong side. There's a lot of them living in the United States and France, other places of the world. And he said that we were prepared for massive losses during Tet, but we weren't prepared for the losses that we actually had. The Viet Cong was almost eliminated.
That's correct. That's when they started using more and more North Vietnamese regulars. They were there. They were always. That's what their supply lines were. The Ho Chi Minh Trail over in to the jungles of Cambodia and Laos, and that's how they infiltrated in through into the Da Nang area and into the Delta down by Saigon.
Right. And
in Middle Highlands of Plains, I guess it was called.
They were so organized. They had a petroleum pipeline that went from North Vietnam to within 30 miles of Saigon. You know, this was not a small operation, and the guys were well trained. We've got about 30 seconds left before the break. Did you ever get over near Cambodia or Laos yourself?
I don't know. Don't know.
Jungle looks the same in South
the mountains
Vietnam.
were the mountains.
Right. And we're going to come back and we're going to talk about what you guys would do at night, how long you were out there, the ambushes, and a little bit more of the things. I've got so much admiration for you. We're coming up to a break right now. You're listening to Veterans Radio on Ave Maria Radio, and we'll be right back after this break.
The Medal of Honor is the highest award for valor in combat given a member of the Armed Forces of the United States. There have been over 3,400 recipients of the nation's highest award. This is one of them.
Sergeant Roy Harmon, although wounded twice, continued his assault on the enemy machine gun emplacements. Details after this. Harmon was acting squad leader when heavy machine gun fire from German positions stopped his company's advance and pinned down one of the platoons. Ordered to rescue the platoon, he led his squad forward against 3 key positions. His squad fired tracer bullets in an attempt to set fire to the 3 haystacks. Harmon ordered his squad to hold their position and began a one-man assault. Carrying white phosphorus grenades, Harmon crept to within 25 yards of the first position. He set the haystack afire with a grenade, and when 2 of the enemy attempted to flee, he killed them with his machine gun. Crawling toward the second machine gun emplacement, he was wounded, but continued to advance and destroyed the position with hand grenades, killing the occupants. He then attacked the third machine gun. About halfway to his objective, he was again wounded, but he struggled ahead until within 20 yards of the machine gun nest, where he raised himself to his knees to throw a grenade. He was knocked down by direct enemy fire. With a final effort, he again rose, hurled a grenade, and fell dead, riddled with bullets. His grenade set the third position on fire, destroying it.
The Medal of Honor series is a production of Veterans Radio.
And we're back on Veterans Radio. Our guest today is Ron Warhurst, who is the men's cross-country coach at the University of Michigan, starting his 35th year pretty soon. Ron, we talked about what you did out in the field a bit. And getting in those firefights and doing the things you did, you don't come out of civilian life and do those things. How does the military prepare you for what you did?
I think it starts. You're initially indoctrinated into the military when you go to boot camp, and it's a pretty interesting scenario when they get you off the plane and put you on the buses. I went to MCRD in California, San Diego, and they dress you up. Everybody wears sneakers. Everybody wears same yellow shirt, green fatigues, and everybody's head shaved. And the first thing they do at 2 or 3 in the morning is everybody holds hands. And the guys come from all walks of life. Way back when I was in the Marine Corps in 68 to 70, the average grade level obtained was 11.1, and a lot of the kids were roughnecks, and they actually even came out of some of the juvenile courts in Chicago and places like that. So, and there was a lot of gang members from California and so forth. But to hold hands with a guy when you're 19, 20, 21 years old, and you're kind of a roughneck type of guy, it's kind of like, and you didn't break ranks. So what they try and teach you to do, they try and break down take away your individuality totally, and then start from the first day you're in camp to 8 weeks later to build you up into a unit of one. And they do that through drill with the rifle on the drill field and marching, and just any typical way that they could of taking away the individuality, they did. We'd be marching, and kids couldn't keep left foot, right foot, left foot. We'd stop, and we'd have to do squat thrust. And you learned quickly that one person is a result of the total group, is a result of all the individuals doing the same thing and doing it very proficiently. And I think that's one of the things you learn. You learn that you can be an individual, but you're always going to be a part of a team or a group. And for the team or the group to succeed, the individuals have to know what they're doing.
And for the team and the group to live, everybody has to know what they're doing. Everybody has to be on the same team, because one individual can get a lot of people killed, not just themselves. Is that correct?
Well, we found that out in Vietnam when you're working in groups of fire team, four-man fire teams, and then your platoons are 45 to 50 people, and your squads, could be anywhere between 12 to 22 people. And when you're on a patrol, or you're in a massive movement, and somebody drops the orders down to do this, this, and this, you have to be able to respond to it, because your actions could be responsible for the life and death of 4 to 6 or 8 or 10 people. So that's where the individuality comes in, of being able to think through what you're doing, but everybody has to respond in the same fashion. And that's part of the training that you go through in the boot camp regiment, and then into advanced infantry training and so forth. As the levels go up, you start to realize what the value of that was, that you as an individual can be responsible for the life and death of 8 to 10 or 15 people.
I never heard a sergeant, or in our case a petty officer, ask, does anybody want to do this?
Well, the old adage was, don't be first and don't be last.
Excuse me. When you would walk into an ambush, well, let me ask you a question first about boot camp. Has it ever been portrayed correctly by Hollywood?
I think one of the movies that really portrays it is a Full Metal Jacket, the movie. That was pretty close to about 80% of what it's like in boot camp, and the way you're spoken to, and the regiment, and the paying attention to orders and so forth. In my boot camp group, I was called into the duty hooch one night. I was 4 or 5 years older than most of them. I'd been through college and through graduate school. I was 24, going on 25, and I was as old, if not older, than 2 of the drill instructors. But because I was so squared away, I was intimidated by what was going on, because I was older, that they had thought that I was already a lieutenant in the Marine Corps, put back through boot camp to catch the drill instructors being abusive. I think at that point, a year or so before that, in 66 or 7, there were some problems down at Camp Lejeune, South Carolina, where one of the drill instructors had too much to drink and got the kids, all the cadets up, the boots up, in the middle of the night, and went through swamps and so forth, and 1 or 2 of them drowned. So they kind of clamped down on being a hardcore drill instructor. But those guys really knew how to do their job very well.
Did you?
And they put me through the test in the duty hooch, and then they realized that, well, I guess he's just a really squared away guy.
Did you hate them or admire them, or both?
I knew because I was older why they were doing what they were doing. So it was like, it's my will against their will, and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability to do it right.
You're listening to Ron Warhurst, who served with the Marines and in Vietnam, and is now the head basketball coach. If you served with Ron and you would like to phone in and say hi to him, Bob, give us that telephone number. It's not on my sheet here.
Okay, Gary, you want to call us at 877-573-7825. That's 877-578. Oh, strike that. Strike it. 877-573-7825. 877-573-7825.
If you've always wondered where Ron went after the service, give us a call. Say hi to him. So after boot camp, you got over to Vietnam. What was it like when you first arrived? What was your first impression?
My MOS was 0311, which is a grunt, and then I did 86, 41, 31. I did force recon training, and they were just getting ready to go to jump school I imagine it was Fort Benning, Georgia, and they said, well, the stuff's really hitting the fan. So this is in January of 69. So they said, you're just going to go. You don't need to jump out of planes. You don't need your wings. So I was anticipating going into the Force Recon Group, which was right there in Da Nang. And we got there and there wasn't any opening, so they put me into the 5th Marines, Alpha Company, 5th Marines, one of the most decorated units in the Army. They wear the French protégé in their winter dress uniforms. So
that's who I worked for over there.
Oh yes, at a different time, like 2 years previous, I believe.
Earlier. Right.
And they moved into the Arizona territory and into Anwa Combat Base, I believe, in '68. And one of our mutual friends, Tom, was a sniper on the Ganoi Island, and I forget the name of the operation. Was it Allenbrook? Yeah,
that's Tom Pilecki.
Yeah, and during the '68 thing, and I got in there just after that. But our Anwa Combat Base was in the Arizona Territory and in the Liberty Bridge area, which is just west of the Ganoi Island. And a routine day, once you get into the field and you're humping around, you usually spend 2 to 3 nights or days in one area, and then you pick up and move. You don't want to stay too long in one area. They can the Viet Cong, the North Vietnamese regulars, had a pretty good way of following what you were doing, and they could hone in on you and try and get in there in your lines at night. But a typical day was we moved from one area to the next. Sometimes we moved at night, and sometimes we moved during the day. Big operations, we moved at night so we could surprise them in the morning. Hopefully we did. But you'd be digging your foxholes, and we had pauses of 4 guys each, fire team. And you did that during the day, and if you were once you got settled in, if your squad was called up on duty to go on a patrol for the day, you'd do that and you'd come back, and the other part of the company would just rest. And then at nighttime, you sat the lines, and you'd have a pause of 4 guys, and you'd from about 10 o'clock at night, every 2 hours, somebody else would be awake. And then that was one job that you had. Another, if you were in a different platoon, you might have to go on a night ambush setup. So you'd have 10 or 12 or 15, 20 people going out of the lines, going a click or two. It could be 1,000 meters, could be 2,000 meters, and usually not more than 1,000, 2,000 meters, mile and a half approximately. It got pretty dark at night, and there were times when you had to hold on to the guy's pack in front of you to see where you're going. So as a point man, that's what I did. It was my job to get from our lines to where the company commander or the intelligence people thought there might be some movement at night, because the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese moved at night all the time. And it's the difference in the Vietnam War, and probably similar to what's going on in Iraq, is there weren't any real front lines.
Right.
It was we sat in circles, and you dug in a perimeter because it was all over. They were all over the place. So
we're going to come right back to that. You're listening to Veterans Radio on Ave Maria Radio. We're coming up on a break. We'll be right back. And the time's flying past. We're back on our final segment of Veterans Radio, talking to Ron Warhurst, who is the men's cross-country coach at the University of Michigan. Is that right, Ron?
Cross-country and head track coach as well for the last 10 years. Cross-country for 34, going on 35, and track on my 10th year. I do both.
And you also have worked with football players and your Olympic players from other countries that are actually your students, I guess, correct?
Right. In the past I've worked with football. Maybe Coach Rodriguez will want me to help him again, but they're recruiting a lot of speed, so we'll have to wait and see. I'm the distance guy. I got my assistant coach Fred LaPlante is the speed guy. But I've got 2 fellows going to the Olympics in Beijing. One's from New Zealand and one's from Canada. Actually, there's another representative from Canada, Kevin Sullivan, who are Michigan grads that I've coached over the years.
You got to feel like a proud dad.
Yeah, Nate just got the standard yesterday in Rome, and he's on his way back home here. So it's a treat. My first Olympian was Brian Deemer in 1984. Ended up with a bronze medal in the steeplechase. So Michigan's got a long history of excellent sports, and which includes distance running, cross country, and track. Great school. And speaking of medals, you received a couple that people really didn't want to receive, and that was the Purple Heart. You got 2 of them. Minor shrapnel wounds compared to some of the fellows that lost their limbs and lost their life and so forth. I ducked when I should have ducked the other way. I ducked right into one. This minor shrapnel was from mortars that were being dropped on us at night.
only got mortars one time. It's gives you a pause for concern.
You can hear them coming. That's the problem. And I'm glad I could hear them coming, because they say the one you don't hear is the one that kills you. They were in the one situation. They were coming at us pretty good at night, and they were dropping their mortars, and they were really focusing in on the machine gun position. So two of us were out of our hole, running about 20 yards away, and to help lay down the ground fire for the machine gun. And we could hear it coming, and the kid says, "Here, we can hear it's coming." So we hit the deck, and my helmet fell off when they did, and I could feel the burn in the side of my skull before I could hear the explosion. That's how close it was. If I would have been standing up, I wouldn't be here talking. But it was just a surface wound. It didn't obviously didn't break the skull or anything, but it tore the skin. And some of the kids I coach now think that's why I'm still crazy.
Well, mortar rounds explode in a cone shape.
Correct.
So if you are on the ground real close to them, you live. If you're standing up, you die.
Correct.
You also got the Navy Commendation Medal?
Just probably for the total service I was there. I did some things, did a couple of John Waynes, and it was just part of the job at the time.
Okay, that means you're a Vietnam vet. You served over there because it was, I only did. You always know a real veteran because they always start off with, I only. And that's what you just said. You said a couple of other things that were kind of interesting. You mentioned Arizona Territory. And being young guys, we all had our nicknames for things. The John Wayne pose or the John Wayne action, the Freedom Hill over near Da Nang, Happy Valley, I forget where that was. And so there it was, kind of the humor that was injected all the time.
Some of it can't be spoken about.
Yeah.
Today?
No.
The language that we used?
No. You've got a photograph I'm looking at right here. Three of you, almost like the three fighting men, that statue that's at the wall. And you guys are just standing there casually, and mud up to the top of your boots and water up to the top of your boots. That was during the monsoons, I guess?
Yeah, the monsoon season was really nasty. I guess there's another picture there of our put-together, quote, our hooch that we did. You take your two ponchos and stake them out, and then the poncho liner, you wrap yourself up in it, and basically you slept in the mud and the water. Depending on where you were, you're always wet, but we used to call it dishpan toes and hands. If you have your hands in dishwater for long periods of time, your skin gets real white and shriveled up, and that's what your feet look like. And that was you would always carry an extra pair of socks. But in those particular times, it was extremely difficult to stay dry. And sleeping in the mush was really uncomfortable, but you adjusted to it. You just did it because that's where you were. It wasn't like you could go to the corner, jump on a bus, and say, "I'm out of here."
Right.
You were there for the duration, and you made the best of the worst situation you possibly could.
And for those people that think that you can't sleep in the mud, you have to. If you're tired enough, you can.
You get plenty tired.
Right. And you guys really worked and earned your money. We talk about your feet being wrinkled. Mine were rotting off. I went to sick bay, and I was given some powder and told to put it on twice a day and keep my feet dry.
That's it.
I just laughed. Walking around in mud over the tops of your boots and water. But so it's not just, people don't realize that it's not just the combat. It's the day-to-day living, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, week after week. And you think it's never going to end.
Well, the situation in Vietnam, which is quite similar to what it is in Iraq, is you don't know where the enemy is. They all kind of look alike. They dress the same when they're in the field. You don't know if they're civilian or if they're the Viet Cong, or the difference between the NVAs. They had a semblance of a uniform.
Right.
All the fellows that are in Iraq right now, and Iraq and Afghanistan, the population's all dressed the same. You don't know who to trust and who not to trust. And I think that was our situation too. Like I said, we sat in perimeters and circles because there weren't any front lines where you knew the fighting was going to be up front, and you could go back, withdraw a mile, and just sit and have an R&R. Even in our rear area, which was Anwar Combat Base, they were always dropping B-40 rockets on us, and there was always every second of every 24 hours, there was an opportunity and a chance that a bullet would hit you or a mortar would land on you or you would trip a booby trap. So it was there's a lot of tension involved and a lot of emotional stress, which a lot of veterans, it manifests itself, and when they come back, it doesn't maybe show up for a year or 2 or 3 years, but it's always in the back of your mind. There's always something, and every day in my life that something triggers a thought about Vietnam and the war, and it doesn't necessarily overtake my emotions for that minute, but for a split second, you flash back, and that's what a lot of veterans experience.
What you just said, every 4th of July, and this was back in our base, which was quote-unquote in the rear, every 4th of July, I think about standing next to a buddy talking to him when a green tracer went just above our heads in between the two of us. And I'd never told anybody that because that was the first experience I had with green tracers, and I thought, did I imagine that? Tracers are red, not theirs. The other thing that you mentioned is they were going for the machine gunner with the mortar. These guys had a real good idea of where you were.
Yeah, they would. That's why you didn't stay in one particular pause too long, more than 2 or 3 days. And the frightening thing about it is when you're awake at night and you know they're about 100 and 150 yards out in front of you, you can hear them drop the round in the mortar tube, and you hear a thump. It goes, and then you know it's airborne and it's going to come down somewhere in your perimeter. You have no clue where it's going to happen, and you start hearing thump, 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 and you go, oh my God, there's 3 or 4 plates out there, and you knew it wasn't just 1 or 2 individuals. It was they were getting ready to make a run at you.
And they were very good at what they did with those mortars.
I think they would sit in the daytime and eye it so they could get a approximation of what the distance was to drop it within your perimeter.
Well, it's amazing that how fast this show goes, and we're wrapping up right now. I want to thank our sponsors, Marine Scholars Fund, Len Pitlack CPA, Pat the Handyman, Quantum Physical Therapy, Freighter Yacht Sales, Barry Van Ness, Lilly and Associates, that's me, and tune in again next week. In the meantime, you are dismissed.
All views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily part of Veterans Radio or the station. Veterans Radio is a production of Veterans Radio, LLC.